Chuck, or actually Charles Chuck Wolf, I should say.
Charles. Yeah.
So number one, and you have the sheet there, what brought you and your family to the Entiat Valley?
The desire for a better life.
And do you remember when you came to the valley, or your folks came to the valley?
My folks came to the valley, and my grandpa first came to the valley in 1892. And then he brought his family in 1898.
And from where did they come from?
They came from New Watkin, Washington.
State of Washington?
State of Washington, which is now the area of Bellingham. We
Bellingham.
all know as Bellingham.
Oh, okay.
Because it's Watkin County, but there was a small village there.
Remind me.
And before that, from Sandusky in Seneca, Ohio, by way of Colorado. And then that's pretty much the journey that my grandfather did to get here to the valley.
How did your family make their living over the years? And then how did you, then the second would be, how did you make your living?
Okay, my grandfather was a woodsman and farmer, and when he first came into the valley, he applied for purchase of property in the area of Mills Canyon, and he farmed, sold property, worked as a logger, sawmill worker, and then he later on was a road supervisor for the county on the Entiat Valley Road. And then he also built the Entiat Log Cabin Tavern.
And I'm assuming that's the old town.
That's the second town.
Second
the
town. Okay.
The first
Right, the first town was down by
right.
the river. Yeah.
First town was down by the river. For myself, I was born here, raised here, and educated here to the Entiat School District, Entiat High School. And then I went to work for the U.S. Forest Service and worked for them 37 years. Then retired from that and started my own excavation business, which I spent 14 years doing, and then I retired. Sold the business and retired totally.
As a graduate of Entiat High School, what year did you graduate in?
1958.
Yeah. Oh, I thought it was 7. What resources were important to you and your family in your life here? The things you had around you. For instance, the lumber mill, Harris Orchards, mining or whatever.
The fruit industry is the main thing. My dad spent his working life for J.K. MacArthur, the old Pine Tree Ranch, located across the river from Saunders Canyon.
Okay. As you grew up, who were your neighbors? Do you remember your neighbors?
Yeah, the Ashers, the Hannons, the Barnetts, the McDougals, the MacArthurs, the Smalls, and let's see, pretty much.
Good.
That was a close one.
In times past, what do you remember? What brought people together in the community, and where did they gather? Such things as entertainment, organization, church, school, sports. What do you remember?
Mainly through the school, through the Odd Fellows organization, the IOOF. My dad was 37 years in that. And my mom was 24 years in the Rebecca's. And then the church, and that's pretty much it. The town itself was quite a facility for young people to be educated in.
What events or hardships do you remember from your past, such as fire, snow, windstorms, big floods, hunger, illness?
I remember the winters as being really cold. as a kid. And then it seemed to get warmer and warmer. We used to have ice rinks. In fact, we used to skate to town to get groceries for Mom on the county road or on the river. So you can't do that now.
What do you remember about putting your class number on the hill, Newell Mountain?
It was a job. We hung off a ladder for 6 days trying to paint that number. And then Les Julian come along later and repainted it when it became.
How did your family put food on the table, preserve food, or what kind of meals did you have, or do you remember? Such things like hunting, fishing, gardening, canning, drying food and fruit. Do you remember any of that stuff?
Oh yeah, all of it. All of the above was a matter of living back then. And during the 40s, you know, of course the war was on. And I remember that quite vividly as when VJ Day came. And we were in Wenatchee, and they scared the living hell out of me marching up and down the street. But pretty much we lived with large gardens, neighbors, had businesses such as eggs, cows, sheep, pigs, and all of that. And we did all of that to get along.
Describe the old town of Entiat you remember when you were young, the one that was flooded out in 1960.
The one that was replaced?
The one that was
By the
flooded
lake?
out, the old town.
Yeah. Well, it was much bigger, and the warehouses were all condensed right around it, and then the railroad was quite active in that time, and I have the privilege of experiencing the steam engine, and when they used to have passenger cars and freight, and the town, let's see, the restaurants, the taverns, the apothecary shop by the Rogers was a neat place, really a neat place. And we'd go in there and spend hours with Jesse, be there behind the counter and have a counter soda. There was no bottle pop, it was just a soda in a glass. Right there from, and I remember down at Foxworthy's house, which was on down the river, he was a collector of odds and ends, and he had, when that building was torn down, he got the counter out of there and all of the hardware and so on. The filling stations, when it was high school, they were all there. You know, the Rudes and the, let's see, who else? Max's mobile station was the first job I ever had in town. Attended there, and then that got tore out, and then we didn't have none. Les Miller's shop and the old Hicks garage. Lucky Kate was there.
What do you remember about the valley when you were growing up, the Entiat Valley?
Let's see, lots of things. Logging was very prevalent. In fact, the Petersons had old converted Army 6x6s made into logging trucks, and they'd bring them off the hills, and they'd have the tank of water on the back and the steam on the brakes, and so and we had a swimming hole at the old Kellogg Mill site at the mouth of the Mills Canyon, and sleigh riding in the winter down Mills Canyon on the old bobsleds. I think the old bobsled we used, Jack Asher corralled it and kept it in his barn.
What do you remember about Ardenvor?
Not too much. Only thing that we got involved in wintertime up to the ice rink, up at the mill. And pretty much the mill side is what I remember, because my Uncle D worked for the mill and he lived right there on the site.
What do you remember about Winesap or Wagnersburg?
Winesap? Winesap. Oh, that's the school out there. Mrs. Goldman was the teacher at that time. I remember her. And Laverna Fay and Earl. That's where I first knew them. They lived up what we call Oklahoma Gulch now, which was Winesap Canyon back then. And then Wagnersburg. Not too much. Most of it was hiking down or riding your bike down along the railroad tracks. They had warehouses there and stuff, pretty much.
Would you tell a story of your or people you remember from your past, such as Albert Jones, who used to go by Abby Dabby, John Brown, Buzz Butts, or any other characters?
Buzz was my cousin.
That's true.
Yeah. My Aunt Hazel's son.
How about any other old timers?
Any of the old timers. Clarence Haynes, probably the most memorable, because he kind of controlled everything. Him and his old Dodge pickup. Because back then we used to have, fruit was picked by itinerant workers that came in on the railroad and so on. And he kind of control them and get them spread out to the orchards and keep them under control.
Just for history's sake, what job did Clarence actually have?
He had the sheriff of the town.
Sheriff or marshal?
Marshal.
Marshal. Yeah.
But he was sheriff.
Yeah.
To us kids, he was sheriff.
Do you remember anybody else like John Brown, Shorty Lauren,
Oh, yeah.
Charlie Gray,
Yeah,
Mr. Charles Chuck Heading Sr.?
yeah. Lots of names. Dixie Hinton's dad, Red Galbraith, Manford Boards, Ed Boards, and Saturday night at the taverns. Let's see, who else? Geez, there's a lot of them. The Bonoy brothers, up in Oklahoma Flats. Geez, there's so many people, I can't remember them all.
You've given us
Knox MacArthur was a character. He really liked kids, and he'd spend a lot of time with the kids. Fruit harvest, he'd always, have something special for the kids.
one last person. Do you remember much about Willie Risk?
Willie Risk, oh yeah, yeah. Will Risk was quite a guy. Store manager or owner and manager there in the town. He was quite an avid sports fan. He'd follow the kids all over the state. Wherever they went, he went. Him and Cora, his wife. We rented our second house from the Risks when we were first married.
What part of Entiat's past that no longer exists do you miss the most, such as a place, person, feeling, things like have been mentioned, like square dancing, the old ice rink in town by Tex and M's, or if you, I don't even know if you remember Tex and M's, but
Oh yeah, Tex
skiing.
and M's was next to the skating rink. Yeah, across from the tavern. across the street from the tavern, Grandpa's Tavern. Of course, Ray Brawley owned the tavern at that time. Oh yeah, that skating rink was quite a deal.
Yeah. You mentioned taverns. Do you remember how many there were?
Just two. Two legal ones.
We don't want to take the girls. No. Did your family have a barn when you grew up as a young kid?
No, we didn't, but the Barnett barn was there, and we were in it all the time and helped Grandpa Barnett take care of the animals and milk the cows.
How have the
Slaughter
tools?
pigs.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Huh?
How have the tools, equipment, and vehicles changed during your lifetime?
A great improvement. I remember the old Ford tractors, steel-wheeled Ford tractors, and the puddle jumpers. And most people you talk to them about now, younger people, they don't even know what a puddle jumper is. They just think you made up a name. They're definitely a rig that did a lot of work for the orchardists.
What do you appreciate about the Entiat Valley now? Or the Entiat community now?
The mountains, the river itself, the people. The people are a little bit different than you see elsewhere. Yeah, I think that thing that strikes me the most is the what is it? What do I want to say? I want to say there is no class of people in this community, in this area. They all live together and get along and help one another. I think that's the strongest attribute of the valley.
Yeah.
Those people that come here, it doesn't take them long, but they complain all the time they are not accepted. but they are. You know, they get put down their roots and we bring them along with us.
Excellent. A couple more. You could divide your life into thirds. Early third would probably be up through the end of high school to your 40s, 50s, and your last third. Other than marriage and the birth of your children, what could you say was outstanding and that you remember in each third of your life?
Of course, the first third of my life was growing up. And what was strong there was the school. I wasn't too good a student. I got in a lot of trouble, but I really was interested in it. But I'm kind of a dummy. In sports, I did well, and you and I spent some good times playing sports.
We did.
And let's see, the second was being married to this girl on my right is probably the most memorable and treasured thing. Being able to meet her and get her to agree to live with me. We've been married 52 years now. So.
The last third?
The last third was struggling to retire. It was tough to recognize that your life is before you, has gone by. There's something more that you need to do, but how do you do it? And you're on your own once you retire to find that out. It's you have a work routine, but that work routine is gone. There's the need for it. So you wander around the place and wonder, what should I do next and where should I go next? And those things that I'd like to do, maybe someday I'll get a chance to do.
Last question. Your family. Do I have to wait for that? Okay.
It's done.
Your family were pioneers of this valley, and then you're noted for your work with the Forest Service. And what could you tell us about establishing the Bushman, which was the hotshot crew?
Well, I was the first foreman. Now I guess they call them superintendents or something
Yeah.
like that. But, actually, I wasn't the first. Actually, Doug Bowie was the first
Oh, I think.
organized fire suppression crew on the Entiat. He had an 8-person crew, and they called themselves Snow White and the Dwarfs. But the first crew I managed was 15, and then it went to 25, and then because of the loading factors for the DC-3s that we flew around the Pacific Northwest and down into Northern California, load limits, we had to go back to 20 people. So that, let's see, what I lost track of the question.
That was it. So, is there anything you would like to say before we finish about your history or anything about the valley or anything?
This valley, probably sometime in the future, it hasn't happened as yet, it's going to be recognized as a fire ecology. I shouldn't call it fire ecology, I should say the primary or the most important part of ecology is starting to be recognized, and that's fire as a necessary element of the ecosystem here. And I know first got into prescribed fire, and I really learned that from McGraw-Hill's book that was written by Harold Weaver in the Colville National Forest back in the 20s and the 30s. He's probably the pioneer of prescribed fire. But they're starting to recognize that, and I think that I've seen some of it being practiced this fall with the late fires, which I think was an excellent management decision.
Okay, well, thank you very much for your answers. Next comes Flora.
Do I have to?
We won't give you as many way back when, or to this area, north central Washington.
Well, I met Chuck Wolf. That's what brought me to Entiat.
So where did you originally come from?
I came from Oklahoma at the age of 2.
Wow. Did you come to the Entiat Valley, or did you come to another part of the state?
Oh, we came to Manson,
Manson.
And your family name was?
Bakers.
Okay. How did you and your family make a living over the years when you were little?
My dad was an orchardist.
And did you do any work growing up?
Oh yes. Thinning, waitressing.
What do you remember about your time in Manson? Anything?
Well, had some good times.
Do you remember your neighbors you had in Manson?
Tackets. Wards. Schraders. Smiths. The Armstrongs. We're armbroosters.
What events or hardships do you remember from your past, such as fire, snow, earthquakes, floods, anything major?
Well, I remember winters. We had heavy winters. They'd get several feet where compared to the day. Get a few inches. And
What do you remember about putting food on the table, such things as gardening, hunting, fishing, canning, drying?
my dad did a lot of fishing and hunting, and we raised a large garden, and Mom did canning and drying fruit.
When you were married, did you your first years were in Entiat?
Yes.
So what do you remember about Entiat when you first came here?
Well, I remember when we was first going together, the old town. It was, and that was 1960.
What?
So it wasn't long after that that
Yeah.
the town was moved.
What part of Entiat's past, well, you just said the town, but do you remember when you first came that you now miss, that they no longer have?
You don't have a town center.
Good. As you grew up, did your family have a barn?
No, we didn't.
Do you remember the tools and equipment and vehicles of your lifetime? How have they improved?
Cars have improved.
What do you appreciate about the Entiat Valley now?
The people.
The people. If you had a chance to break your life down into, or not had a chance, if you broke your life down into thirds, the first third being through high school, the second third being maybe up to 50, and the last third, could you give something in each area that was important other than marriage and your children? Like an event or a happening?
Well, I'm from a family of 15, so we did what?
15 kids.
How about the middle third? Probably, that was probably the time you met Chuck and got married. What do you remember about that time? Fires, him gone a lot?
Yeah.
Yes, he was gone a lot. That's probably what we miss the most.
And how about the last third? Anything outstanding that sits in your memory? Other than your grandchildren? 'Cause I know that sits in everybody's memory.
Oh yeah, I could hardly wait to be a grandma.
Is there anything you would like to say or add or talk about that we haven't discussed?
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing the new town.
Do you have any questions, Leslie?
I'm sitting here.
We would like to thank you for this, and that concludes our interview. Thank you, girls. Thank you, guys.
Think about stuff, you can't say it.
I know.